We are almost at the halfway point of the fantasy football regular season. We're entering into week 7, and Joe and I are here to talk about some trade targets that you should be looking for.
Hike!
Alrighty, my first trade target that I'd be looking out for is wide receiver Diontae Johnson. He's been activated off the IR, and Pittsburgh Steelers are coming off the bye. You might have forgot about him. I do think he's an interesting player to buy for the second half of the season now that he is recovered from the injury, and I like him moving forward in the Steelers offense as he's still the number one guy, and I'd be willing to trade the likes of Jerry Jeudy, George Pickens, and Terry McLaurin.
Yeah, you are a lot higher on him than I am. Always have been. My concern is with Pickett. Pickett's been kind of hobbled. They haven't really been using him a lot. Maybe, there've been a lot of ridicule, with their offensive coordinator, Matt Canada. So question will be that the bye week, were they able to take advantage of that and be able to move forward? But he is coming off the IR, and as a result, people may have slept on him. Could be a buy low option.
Yeah, I get all the Pickett concerns, but I think part of the reason the offense looks out of sync is he was really the number one option on those, a lot of these quick throws in the plays. So I think he could add some stability to that offense that it's looked erratic since he got hurt.
So my first trade target that I would seek to go get would be tight end Darren Waller. Now, I know he's been a disappointment, but just coming off that Sunday night performance against the Buffalo Bills, Tyrod Taylor, actually that offense looked a lot better with him under center versus Daniel Jones. Over the past 2 weeks, he's had a total of 18 targets. This past game, he had 7 targets, 5 catches for 42 yards. I just really liked how they were looking his way. He's becoming more of a vocal point of the offense, like we thought he would be. Tight end is a wasteland. So to me, I'd be willing to go target him. The guys I'd be willing to send out to go get him, tight end Evan Ingram, I would be willing to trade him. I think that Waller just has a higher upside. I'd be willing to trade Jerry Jeudy. People may want him because of the trade value. And I'd also be willing to trade Zach Moss. That could be a surprise, but I think JT eventually will take over. With Gardner Minshew under helm, just don't like the running back options there without Anthony Richardson.
Yeah, that makes sense. But Minshew does also open up those opportunities for the running backs to actually get the touchdowns versus Richardson's goal line, hawk and all of them. But, I thought it's interesting you mentioned trading Ingram. I think I personally would rather have Evan Ingram than Darren Waller at this point.
Totally understand. Just, feel like he's an ascending player. And if Daniel Jones, who has a neck injury, remember he had a neck injury before, I think he missed the season at that point when that happened. He says he'll play next week. I'm kind of doubting it based on how the offense looked. I think that they're not going to rush him back. So if Tyrod Taylor's a quarterback, I like him a lot.
Yeah, if Tyrod Taylor is going to be the guy going forward, I like him a lot more. For whatever reason, Daniel Jones, they just didn't have the report. All preseason, all you heard was in training camp, Daniel Jones couldn't stop throwing it to this guy. Then the regular season happens, and they just don't seem to be on the page. I don't get it, but.
So are you enjoying this video so far? Well, if you are, show your support to our new channel by hitting the subscribe button and liking this video. We'll be creating videos all NFL season long, so you're not going to want to miss what we have in store.
But my next player here, the next guy I would trade for is I'm going to try to target Rashee Rice. I think he's the one wide receiver out of this Kansas City Chiefs receiving core that's going to start making some plays besides Travis Kelce. We've seen the targets increase ever since week 1. He had 4 catches for 72 yards receiving against the Broncos. And I think this is just the start of him getting going. So I'd look to buy him now before he really, has that big breakout game. A couple of receivers I'd be willing to trade him for would be guys like Jamison Williams, even though he had that big touchdown catch. He's too boomer bust for my liking. And then I'd also be willing to trade Jackson Smith and Jigba. saw a little bit more utilization out of him against the Bengals, but I don't know if we can really trust that in his utilization going forward. I think Jackson Smith and Jigba could be a better option next year because I don't think Tyler Lockett will be around. And then a couple other guys, at the running back position, I would be targeting. I'd be willing to move on from a guy like Tyler Algier and see if you can pick up a guy like Rashee Rice. And then tight end, I'd be willing to move on from Zach Ertz and try to get Rashee Rice too.
Yeah, interesting about Rice. He's had 2 touchdowns on the year. Averages around 5 targets a game. But, like you said, that was by far his best game as far as yardage goes, a career high for him with 72 yards. So I think that people were expecting Sky Moore to possibly be in that role, or Kadarius Toney to step up and be in that role. There really hasn't been someone who really took that step forward. It's Kelsey. Kelsey's the guy. But Rice is showing way more promise as a rookie than Sky Moore or Kadarius Toney have shown. I'm with you. I would trade away Smith and Jig, but I like the player. Just don't like the usage. We didn't like it when he first got drafted there. And then I think I'd be okay trading Ertz and Algier away as well. I don't know about Jameson Williams though. You know me. I love the ceiling. It's just nerve-wracking because he's a guy who can give you a goose egg, but then he can also give you like what he did today on a small scale. A larger scale, you're talking about even more. But is it sustainable? Is it consistent? I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, he's going to be your traditional boomer good bust guy, somebody like a Mike Williams. The ceiling's super high, but like you said, he could goose you in terms of Jameson Williams. But yeah, I mean, I've always viewed Kadarius Toney as more of a gadget player for the Chiefs and just sparingly used. And obviously, we've seen now rookie season, Sky Moore couldn't get it done. And then even this year, people thought the breakout was going to happen. We've yet to really see that. So I don't know. I think Rashee Rice is going to be the guy to emerge.
All right, Joe. Here comes a doozy. I'm running for the tomatoes to be thrown at me because I'm talking about a buy high candidate, which people are like, why would you buy high? Well, if he's going to keep ascending, it might be worth checking it out, and that's going to be running back Alvin Kamara coming off the suspension. People thought he might not be as good. They drafted Kendre Miller in the 3rd round, and they brought in Jamal Williams, and you brought in Derek Carr. Maybe more of a, depending on what the offense would look like. We didn't know how much Kamara would be involved. Well, first 3 games he's played, it's been phenomenal. The usage rate. We're talking 11 attempts, 22 attempts, 19 attempts. Really solid. On the target side, 14 targets, 3 targets, 8 targets. So his volume right now is unbelievable. Against Houston, he had 19 carries for 68 yards, 8 targets for 7 catches and 36 yards. Now, mind you, his average yard per carry is not great, and he's 28 years old. We thought there could be a possible fall off, but to me, we've learned that for this season especially, Carr just dumps it off to the running back. That's how we saw Josh Jacobs have such a high target and reception amount even last year with Carr. So we know Carr checks it down a ton. At this point, so this is where I'm going to back it up a little bit. Based on the trade value chart that we've been using with Draft Sharks, I would be willing to trade away the likes of Kenneth Walker, Travis Etienne, and Tony Pollard. And I would even, surprisingly, possibly consider Bijan Robinson. I think because of the name, you'll be able to get Alvin Kamara plus, but I don't like how Arthur Smith has used Bijan Robinson up until this point. It's very sporadic. He's been averaging around 14 carries a game. Algier gets spelled in. Unless Algier all of a sudden got injured, I feel like you could target Kamara, and he might be able to give you more usage. So that's kind of my thoughts there, Joe.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think if you're in a PPR league, it makes a ton of sense. Like you said, with Kamara, and obviously, like you saw in this game, I mean, Derek Carr just continually checked the ball down to him, and he definitely gets a lot of the opportunities. Just wonder if, from you said he's getting an older player. Is this going to be sustainable for him to get this type of utilization? And he's a guy that's had the injuries in the past. I do think, I mean, I don't know. The guys you're going to be giving up for Kamara definitely is a buy high. You're never really been a Kenneth Walker. That doesn't really surprise me. And then ETN is an interesting guy. I don't really think his workload is sustainable, and I do think eventually, maybe Tank Bixby comes in. So I mean, I get your ETN and Pollard, but I think I would be holding on to Bijan though.
ETN's is easy sell high right now, in my view. Pollard, I think it's overhyped. I mean, against San Fran, he had eight carries for 29 yards. The previous game before against New England, he had 11 carries for 47 yards. So he's not really he's had 2 touchdowns all year. His target numbers, you're averaging around 3 or 4. So, to me, I just Bijan's the one that is a little bit pushing it. I don't disagree with you, but Pollard, ETN, and Walker are an easy trade away for Kamara right now, in my opinion.
Yeah, Pollard could be tough. I mean, they've had some. They haven't had the best matchups for him to go against, and if he doesn't get it done Monday night versus the Chargers, if he doesn't get it done, then I would completely agree with you. But I think he could have the game and a breakout game for the season.
Well, by the time this video is done and published and you watch it, you might be seeing me eating some crow as the Tony Pollard watch. He goes out for 2 touchdowns and 100 yards. But we will be doing trade targets again next week. Make sure you check us out. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time.